So I mentioned earlier that the Torah begins with these very famous words, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz, which we often translate, and the King James Bible translates as, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. A statement of clear order. What happened first? Well, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Clarity, order, complete comprehension of what happened and when. This is the way we usually think of the beginning of the Torah. This is the way we translate these words. However, Rashi, our greatest commentator and really an incredible Hebrew grammarian, that's what he's most famous for, actually, is being able to parse these words down to their every syllable. And this incredible grammarian points out that actually the beginning of the Torah is very confusing. It's not clear at all. The structure of the word Bereshit in the beginning is inconsistent with any other way that the Torah says that. When the Torah says in the beginning, it usually says Berishonah, at first. It doesn't say Bereshit. Bereshit is a unique word and a unique structure. And in the second sentence of the Torah, Rashi points out that it says God's Spirit, mirachefet al panei hamayim, it dances on the surface of the water, right? Well, if we take this statement literally as a statement of clear order, water would have been created before anything else, except we didn't have a day where water was created at all. Water is just there. And so all of these elements, Rashi says, help us to draw the conclusion generally accepted by our tradition that the beginning of the Torah on the surface, so clear and straightforward, actually tells us nothing about the order of how things happened at the beginning of creation. The passage that begins our Torah is ambiguous. It is mysterious and beyond our comprehension at first glance. That is how our Torah starts. We learn a few different things about life from this reality, I think, about life from the fact that our Torah begins with a confusing word that defies translation and then a list of elements that seem to have no coherence to them. Firstly, I think we learn that mystery is a part of life. We may not grasp that there is mystery at first glance. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, but if we spend a little bit more time looking, we will see it. There is mystery and ambiguity there. And then, once we notice that, we will question. And this is the proper nature of things, according to Judaism. And we learn a second thing, equally as important. Because mystery and ambiguity is a part of life, because understanding and knowing is not always as easy as sounding out a word, humility must be a part of us. Chances are we are going to miss a few angles at first glance. And if we, having missed the mystery, having missed and been blind to the gray area of life, make lasting decisions, we are likely to hurt, and we are likely to err, and we are likely to make terrible mistakes in our lives if we assume that knowing in black and white is possible and is ours. Another surprising element of this Torah portion is that when God creates people, and you may have heard this before or think back to Hebrew school to know this, God uses a we language instead of an I. God says, let us make humankind in our image. Our commentators say that God is talking to a gathering of heavenly beings, a gathering of angels, God's sort of angelic Greek chorus court that God walks around with. These heavenly beings who advise God. Even though this has always been controversial, the fact that there's a we, let us make it mankind in our image, our commentators perceive that the fact that God is collaborating on creation of human beings is an important element of the Torah as well. The Torah includes this confusing language, we, for a very good reason. Humility is part of God. From the moment God makes humans in God's image, God uses humility and partnership as the mechanisms for that creation. I do not often make politically charged statements from the Bima. And that is because I strive to live out this humility as best that I can. I'm lucky to stand before you as often as I do with a microphone, and I must take that responsibility to heart with an awareness of my place. This week, as I read this parashah, which is the source of so much strife in our political life, how and when life begins, and what human beings' roles are in relation to one another, I see and feel compelled to share a tremendous, staggering, draconian lack of humility in one proposition before us, and I feel compelled to speak about it tonight. Amendment 1, the proposition on the ballot on November 4th in Tennessee, is a proposed amendment to the Tennessee Constitution, and the voters of Tennessee are being asked to amend our Constitution so that it will never be construed as protecting abortion rights under any circumstances, even in the cases of rape or incest or threat to the life of the mother. The wording of this amendment is cunning, but what it would allow is for Tennessee lawmakers to have a blank slate in the future to pass unlimited restrictions on access to abortion in the future. One description of it is it operates as a Trojan horse to permit any future regulation that our legislators see fit. Complete freedom to restrict access to abortion procedures for women in our state, to make decisions themselves, these lawmakers, on what is best for women in distress, rather than to leave those decisions to the women, to their doctors, and to their spiritual leaders. Why on this Shabbat Bereshit am I asking us to give this thought? Because our Torah tells us that humility and acknowledgement of ambiguity are paths to righteousness. They are seeds planted at the very beginning of our Torah. There is no humility in this amendment, no acknowledgement of ambiguity that permeates the mostly poor women's lives who will be affected by it. Our legislators will be granting themselves permission, if we vote yes to Amendment 1, to look at Bereshit and see one answer and one answer only, rather than thousands of different ones. They are writing themselves a blank check to put the world in order without consulting us at any point. This is a staggering lack of humility when we recall that even God consulted the angels. As religious people who cherish and accept mystery as a part of life, who ask question after question, even about the first word of the entire Torah, who always have stood for justice born of empathy for those less fortunate, it is incumbent upon us. We are compelled to deny those who have no humility, unlimited power over people's lives. Voting no on Amendment 1 during the next 2 weeks of early voting or on November 4th is a way to elevate these values, to preserve them, and to live them out as one of our first acts in the new year. One needn't be passionately pro-choice to say no to this amendment. Many who characterize themselves as anti-abortion are also against this amendment. Voting no to Amendment 1 is what we must do if we are fervently humble and radically compassionate. If we are these things, I believe our way forward is clear. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. During God's creation of the heaven and the earth, God did many things, and one was to create human beings both in God's own image and from the dust of the earth. It is both God's image and the dust in us that must guide us during difficult decisions of any kind. We strive to create like God, but we strive to also contain God's divine humility as well, admitting that no one among us knows what's right all the time. And those among us who think we do, who think we're best fit to make decisions over other people, are, according to our Torah, the least fit to have that responsibility. I hope and pray on this, the first Shabbat of the new year, that we take action against brazenness and ungodliness in our private lives and in our public lives as well. We do have that opportunity as the new year begins. Shabbat Shalom.